Yan. Regine, tanggalin ko muna ha. O gusto mo mag-co-host ka din? Naka-laptop ka ba, Regine? All right. Okay. So first, I would open my spreadsheet. And then I would share it to you. Okay. Yan. Saan yun? Okay, so kumusta ang araw mo ngayon? O ang yung nakaraang mga araw, no? Okay ka naman? Sige. Okay. So, before we comply with all the tax requirements of the BIR and become a registered taxpayer, we need to apply for registration. Now, upon application, they will ask us to fill up BIR Form 1905. So they will gather the information pertinent to a taxpayer. For example, they will get your name, registered address, birth date, spouse, nature of your business, whatever. Along with the application form, they would require you to have a tax identification number or TIN. Now, the tax identification number is permanent and no person shall get more than one tax identification number because this is permanent. This is lifetime. So that would be the reference for all your transactions. Every time they would open your file with the BIR, they would use your tax identification number. In each business location, there is a tax identification number. However, the TIN is the same, but the extension would be changing. For example, you have your TIN or tax identification number that's composed of 9 distinct numbers. And at the for the 3 last digits, the 3 additional digits is 000. Now, every time you open a branch, you have the first 9 TIN number, and then the extension would now be 001 for the first branch and 002 for the second branch. That's why if you are looking at receipts of stores and you would find there the 3 extension numbers, maybe it's 0146, that is the 146th branch of that corporation. All right? Now, also, they would like to know what business name or trade name should be registered in your business. So, if you are a sole proprietor, you must secure a trade name from DTI or Department of Trade and Industry. So, for example, Mr. Aquino wants to open up his accounting firm. So, he would go to DTI website and then register a trade name. Maybe it's called Aquino Accounting Services, something like that. Okay? Or if you are a partnership or a corporation, the business name must be secured from the SEC or Securities and Exchange Commission. Again, you could go to their portal or you could go to their office and list 3 top names of your partnership or corporation, and then they will approve. So upon registration, of course, that would also be the name of the business in your official receipt. For example, we are a partnership with Mr. Aquino, Pogi Accounting Firm. Yan, okay? So that would appear in our business registration and official receipt. Now, some BIR, RDO are requiring barangay clearance or barangay certification and business permit. Even in Manila, I've heard that BIR, RDO are requiring business permit before registering a tax registration. But in Baguio, they do not. Okay, so along with this requirement and 1905, they will ask you to pay the annual registration fee of 500 pesos. So even if you applied on January as a new business, or you applied on December as a new business, you would have to pay 500 pesos annual registration fee. And you would be using BIR form 0605. In fact, this BIR form is called payment form. So every time you pay a tax that has no specific tax return, they would ask you to use BIR form 0605. So the due date of this is, of course, prior to registration or on or before January 31 of the next year. So for example, you registered your business on December 2019. You paid 500 annual registration fee. And again, in the following year, by 2020, you should pay another 500 on or before January 31. What happens if you did not pay on the due date? Maybe you paid on February. You would remember you have to pay four items, okay? Number one would be the tax deficiency, which is the 500. Number two, we have your surcharge of 25%. Number three, we have the interest. Number four, we now have the compromise fee, which is 1,000, no, for every document. Okay, so upon submission of 1905 and 0605, by the way, you pay this to the bank, then you come back with the validation and bank payment. Then they would issue you the certificate of registration, BIR form 2303. You would find there the tax types or the tax that you have to pay. So I have here an example of BIR form 2303. And the BIR requires all businesses to display this in their business establishments. No? So here's BIR form 2303. Okay. So that's the certificate of registration. So you would find there the name and the address of the taxpayer and also the tax types or the tax that the taxpayer has to comply. And this must be displayed. Also, there's what we call as the ask for receipt notice. No? So it looks like this. This is also required to be displayed. All right? Okay, to all business establishments, along with BIR form 0605. Take note that 0605 must be paid every year. So every year you should display the registration fee payment, okay, on January 1. Okay. Now, within 30 days after securing the certificate of registration, the taxpayer must have an official receipt or invoice. That's within 30 days. Because it is a regulation that you cannot collect money without issuing official receipts. There are some exceptions, no? Before it used to be 20 pesos, no? Below 20 pesos, you are allowed not to collect receipts, rather issue receipts. But now I think they increased it to 100 pesos. Anyway, within 30 days, what happens if you did not apply for the printing of your official receipt within 30 days? Well, they will have to ask you to pay compromise fee of 20,000 pesos. Okay, that's the penalty. Now, you are ready. We have now these things on display in your business establishment. You also have your official receipt, and now you do business. So what you will do is to continue complying with the tax type indicated in your BIR form 2303. Okay, so that is that's the requirement, in fact, last meeting in your sheet work that you sent to me via email. All right, so I have here a simple tax calendar, okay, from January to December. And then I will discuss to you the tax compliances of the taxpayer. Hang on. Now, assuming that a business was registered last 2018. So here comes January of the next taxable year. Again, the business must pay annual registration fee of 500 by filling up BIR form 0605. You indicate there your TIN number, and then you pay it to the bank. And then you display it to your business place. Because when the BIR people would come, they would look for this one along with the two, no? The certificate of registration and the ask for receipt notice. Now, you should do this on or before January 31. Also, in our business requirement before, in your assignment rather, it was indicated that the business is renting. For the lessee or the renter, it is required that they will deduct or withhold 5% of the rent. For example, the rent is 100,000 pesos. Now, you do not pay the whole 100,000 to the lessor. Rather, you deduct 5%, which is equal to 5,000. So what would you do with the 5,000? You deposit it to the bank, okay, in the account of the BIR, and then you will use BIR form 0619E. E stands for expanded, no? So this is an expanded withholding tax. Now, when is the due date? For the rent of January, the due date would be on or before February 10. Okay? Again, what happens if you don't pay on or before February 10? Surcharge, interest, compromise fee, aside from the 5,000. Now, why is it that the government required lessees to withhold 5%? No, it works both ways. Number one, if you reported a withholding tax of 5,000 for the rental that you have paid to the lessor, the BIR has a means to trace that rental revenue that must be recorded by the lessor. Okay? On the other hand, for 5,000 tax withheld by the lessee, you are allowed to record a rent expense, which is a deduction from your revenue. Therefore, the taxpayer cannot deduct rent expense unless there is tax withheld. So, if the taxpayer is not withholding 5% tax on rentals, then you should not declare a rent expense in your income statement. Because if you are under audit, then you will be penalized. No, the BIR examiner will ask for the tax withheld. Okay. Also, in your assignment, the business has employees. No. Okay. Now, the government requires employers to withhold or deduct the tax of the employee from their salaries. For example, I had my salary last month from UC for the month of June. Before they release my salary, then UC would compute the applicable tax for my salary and deduct it, and then UC must remit that tax withheld on or before the 10th of the following month. So if we are talking about my salary for June, then UC must remit that to the BIR on or before July 10. Then they would be using BIR form 1601C. By the way, C stands for compensation. Before, well, before train, this used to be 1601E, but this time they interchange it. No, okay. Okay, so for taxes withheld on rent or expanded, and on compensation, the due date is on or before February 10. Now, also, it was mentioned that the trading business is a VAT registered taxpayer. For value-added tax, it must be filed and paid every month using BIR form 2550M. So the M stands for monthly. And the due date for this one would be on or before February 20 of the following month. So how is that? So for example, you have your output VAT, meaning VAT arising from sales of 120,000, and then you have your input VAT or VAT arising from purchases amounting to 100,000. So the VAT payable is 20,000. Is that correct? So that would be 120 output VAT minus 100 input VAT. So the VAT due is 20,000. So along with BIR form 25500, 2550M, you should remit that to the bank, okay, on or before February 20. Now, if it is non-VAT, take note that a non-VAT taxpayer is required to file its percentage tax returns every quarterly. So this is one of the changes under train law, because before, even non-VAT taxpayers pay their taxes every month. Okay? But that has changed. Now, we have a recurring tax transactions every month here, okay, on the withholding tax on rent, compensation, and of course the VAT return. We do that every month for the month of February and so on and so forth. Okay. However, for the VAT, notice that at the end of the quarter for the month of March, the VAT would now be filed using 2550Q, or that's quarterly return. So what would you do? You get all your sales for the quarter. So we have your output VAT, all purchases for the quarter, input VAT, we have the VAT due. And then we deduct the VAT payments for January and February, and the excess would be the payable for the quarter. Notice also that the due date would now be the 25th of the month following the quarter. So in this case, it would now be April 25th. Okay? Same is true with a quarter, with a non-VAT taxpayer. We have mentioned a while back that if the taxpayer is non-VAT, then they will not pay percentage tax every month, rather every quarter. And the due date would also be April 25. Now, while VAT return is 2550Q, the percentage tax return is 2551Q. Okay? Again, Q stands for quarterly, and that is due on the 25th. Also, the business is required to file its quarterly income tax return. So along with the annual tax return last year, the business would file a quarterly income tax return. Take note that even individuals are not required to file quarterly income tax return. Okay? So now, every month we do these recurring tax transactions. However, every end of the quarter, we do this. All right? The quarterly ITR and quarterly VAT return, or quarterly percentage tax in the case of a non-VAT taxpayer. Okay. Now, on December, there is an additional requirement of stamping of the books. BIR would require taxpayers to submit their books, the ledger, the journal, to the BIR, and they will stamp it. And then they will open your file, and then they would tag your account with the BIR that your books have been submitted and stamped. What happens if you fail to have your books stamped? Then they would charge you again 1,000 pesos compromise fee, because anyway, there's no tax due for this tax activity, and therefore, there will be no surcharge or interest. Okay, now, take note that for these three transactions, 3 monthly recurring transactions, or even quarterly in case of VAT, there is an annual return for this one. So you consolidate all the withholding tax on rent, okay, and then there is an annual return, and you do that on January of the next year. Also, you consolidate all your withholding tax on compensation. Sometimes they call this as alpha list. okay, or alphabetical list of all the employees, and then you file the annual return. I did not put here the annual return also of your value-added tax, okay? And then on the 15th of April of the following year, the taxpayer is required to submit and file its annual income tax return. Okay? So these are the common tax transactions, tax forms, and due dates. Do you have any questions so far? Or maybe somebody would offer an intermission number. TikTok. Questions? Or maybe you could chat, no? Before we go to our next lesson, which is LGU taxation or local government unit taxation. Questions, please. Okay. So if there are no questions, then we will proceed to the introduction of local government unit taxation. Okay, so a while back, we were talking about taxes with the BIR. Take note that those are national taxes, meaning it goes to the national government. Now, the local government like cities, municipalities, or provinces, they also have the power to tax. So that is what we will be talking about this time before we talk about the specific taxes computations by next meeting. Oh, by the way, I would like to remind you that we will be having our quiz next meeting. Hindi ba dapat ngayon yon? O next meeting talaga, no? Okay, so please be reminded, ngayon ba? Dapat?
Sir, yes.
Okay. Sige. Sorry, no? Gusto mo ba mag-quiz mamaya? After our discussion? Pwede? Pwede, ano? Ano say mo?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Sige. So, ano yung coverage ng quiz? Well, tax remedies, no? Tax remedies. Otherwise, we will have all our quiz next meeting, no? On the tax remedies and tax compliances, like what we have discussed today, and also the topic that we will be discussing today. All right, so what do you say? Next meeting na lang? By the way, we are already using UC Canvas. And for you to access that, you need to use your official UC email address. All right? Okay? What do you say? Quiz later or quiz next meeting?
Next meeting. Later, sir.
Later, no?
Meeting.
Okay.
Next meeting.
Sige, sige. Okay, we can have it next meeting, no? Yan. Yung gustong mag-quiz today, di bali, ipunin mo na, i-save mo muna, no? Yung na-review mo, ha? I-save mo muna. And then you would add more topics on what we have discussed today. Okay, so now I would like to share you my screen, okay, on the PowerPoint presentation of LGU taxation. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
good. Great.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, oh, by the way, no, for those who just came in, I'm Florendo Daos Jr. I'm a certified public accountant, master's in business administration, and master's in accountancy. Our dean is CPA. You know our dean, right? CPA, MBA, and CMA. She is a certified management accountant. She is working on mastering another one. Huh? she would later become MMA. Yan. Okay. So she will become master of that one. So now let's go to LGU taxation and revenue practices. Now, this is under the Department of Finance. Remember, Department of Finance is the head agency of BIR, Bureau of Customs. You know, these agencies that collect taxes. Now, supposedly, we remember that LGUs are under DILG, right? Department of Internal Local Government. But DILG is more of an HR department for elected officials. For employees of government who are not elected, their HR is Civil Service Commission. Okay. However, when it comes to budgets, taxes, this is under Department of Finance. And for the local government, we have BLGF or Bureau of Local Government Finance. All right. In fact, I was not aware of this until today. So now they made a study because, in fact, they are working currently for the revision of the Constitution and also for the taxation of LGUs with this, federalism. Okay, so now we have the overview of Philippine fiscal decentralization. So when we say decentralization, they have the autonomy of authority and management in the LGU. When we say fiscal, that has something to do with the budget, no? With the money you collect and then you use the money. Now, this is the history. So, by the way, before proceeding further, I would like to share to our Facebook group this material, no? Okay? Uh, Nakalimutan ko palang i-share sa iyo ito, no? Yan. So, please give me a minute and I would share you the reference that we are talking about, okay, in PDF format. Okay. Sige, did you get that? You please download that, no? And so you could follow along. Were you able to get it? Nakuha ba?
Yes, sir.
The Facebook group? Okay, that's great. Okay, so going back to our slide. Okay, so these are the laws that are effective for LGUs from 1959, 1967, 1973. Obviously, we are not yet born at this time. Okay, in 1983, there's Patas Pamansa 337. I was still a cute kid at that time. Okay, until now, but I'm no longer kid. I'm just kidding. Now, there's also other presidential decrees, but currently, as you can see here, we still have the original 1987 Constitution. But in fact, they're trying to amend or change some provisions of this Constitution, particularly on the economic provision. Because as you know, foreigners cannot own land in the Philippines, right? And they can only own up to 40% of businesses here in the Philippines. So they're trying to change that. Also, okay, we have the Local Government Code of 1991. All right? So this is still in effect right now. So this is the basis of the taxation of these LGUs or local government units. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, this is the Philippine legal government. Of course, we have Philippine local governments. Of course, we have the national government, and then these are the LGUs or local governments. This is as of 2015, all right? We have 81 provinces, and then under each province are your municipalities and cities. So we have 1,489 municipalities and 105 component cities. However, notice that there are cities that are not under each province, and we call these independent cities because under each municipality are the barangays. So these barangays report to the municipality, to the mayor. Also, these barangays here in the component cities. Going back, what's the difference of this independent city and this component city? Well, independent cities are not governed by the provincial government. Now, there are two types of independent cities. Okay, we have the highly urbanized city like Baguio City. These cities have tax revenue of at least 50 million every year. By the way, Baguio City's budget is like, I don't know, more than a billion. Okay? Also, there's independent component cities. It is a component city of the province, but they are independent, meaning they are not governed by the provincial government. Uh, you'd remember that Baguio City is inside the province of Benguet, right? So if you could imagine an egg yolk inside an egg, well, the egg yolk is Baguio City and the egg white is the rest of Benguet, right? But do people of Baguio vote for the provincial governor or politicians? The answer is no. Why? Because Baguio City is independent city. It is a highly urbanized city. That is the
Mm.
reason why there are some cases when there's no class in Benguet because the governor declared that there are no classes, but we still have classes here in Baguio because that's not the declaration of the city government. Okay? All right. So now you know the difference of component cities. Now, there are cities under provinces that are governed by the province, and so they would also elect provincial politicians, okay, or officials for that particular province. Okay, maybe you would think of Tabuk City, yan, okay. So that city still elects, officers or officials of the province. All right. So now we would like to uh, focus the taxation on the province, on these municipalities or cities, and on the barangay level. All right. Now, this is the administrative structure of these local governments. The local governments are, viewed as political or territorial subdivisions of the state. Of course, we have the national government, and then units as subdivisions. Now, for a province, this is governed by the governor. For cities and municipalities, these are governed by the mayor. And for the barangays, it is governed by the barangay chairman, or sometimes we call it as barangay captain. Okay, so these are the executive uh, aspect of the government. Okay, however, there's also the legislative aspect of the local government. We call this as sanggunian or legislative council. So the sanggunian of the provincial government are your provincial board. That's why they are called as board members. For city, municipality, and barangay, they are called council. Okay, so we have city councilors, municipal councilors, and barangay councilors or kagawad. Okay, they do they do the laws, no, tax laws or other laws for their uh, respective jurisdiction. Now, we have here the vice governor that would supposedly replace the governor in case of the death of the governor or for any other reason like incapacity, no? Also with the vice mayor. Now, aside from this vice governor waiting for the position of the governor, or same thing with the vice mayor, they become as presiding officers over the council. So every time they have a meeting, like city ordinances, these vice mayors or vice governors would be the chairman during those promulgations or meetings. But notice, there is no vice barangay chairman, right? There's no vice ganda either. Yan, no more. Now, since there is no vice barangay chairman, it would be the barangay chairman or punong barangay that would serve as the presiding officer over the kagawads if the kagawads or barangay council would make any barangay ordinances. But of course, they cannot make much tax ordinances in their barangay because their taxation power is limited, no? Unlike cities and municipalities or provinces. Okay? All right. Now, these are the revenue assignments of local government. Normally, it's fixed, and tax rates can only be adjusted up to 10% and only once every 5 years. So that's the maximum that they can increase taxes. As we will see next meeting, which of these are implemented or collected by the local government. And it would only be once every 5 years. Again, just like our national taxes that has to be promulgated by the Congress or by the lawmaking body of the state, then that would be the same with the local government. You cannot just collect taxes with an executive order from the mayor. No, it must be coming from the city council or the legislative body of the local government. For example, as I can remember, the illegal parking charge before is 50 pesos. So if you park in an illegal parking area, then they would issue you a ticket and then you pay 50. Then later on, they made it as 100. But again, a lot of people are still parking in the no parking area. Why? Because like 100 is nothing, no? So maybe you would park there for the whole month and they will remove your license plate maybe twice. So 200 pesos for a month is not bad, right? So again, they made that to 500 pesos, even illegally parking along city roads and barangay roads. So that would alter the behavior of these drivers, so they will no longer park in those areas. Now, who made these laws? It's the city council that changed all these laws so that there is a basis of collecting those taxes. Okay? Now, as to the real property tax, which we will be discussing later, there is a schedule or a list of all the areas in the city with the corresponding market value as a basis for collecting RPT or real property tax. Okay? And the revaluation or revision of this must be done once every 3 years. There was a time before in Baguio that they did not do this for a very, very long time. That's the reason why that um, taxes on real property are not that high. Okay? Now, we call this as assessed value. There is a fair value of real properties in the BIR. They call that as zonal value. And in Baguio, they just revised that last July of 2018. So the price per square meter for each land has increased. So for example, a person, maybe my neighbor is selling a piece of land and they sell it for 20,000 per square meter. But they like to evade the tax. So maybe they would just like to declare 5,000 per square meter so that the capital gains tax of 6% and the documentary stamp tax of 1.5%, a total of 7.5%, would be lower. Can they do that? Because, in fact, that's what they do to avoid or to evade taxes. Maybe they can do that, but when they go to the BIR, they would look at the location and they will find out that the zonal value here in our place is 9,000 per square meter. So they cannot, even though they really have a 5,000 per square meter deed of sale, the basis of taxation would be the zonal value. Same thing with the local government. They have a a basis for collecting the real property tax based on the revalued per square meter of this land. Okay, so we have here the taxes that each local government unit can collect. So let's go to business taxes. So I've mentioned that before you start your business, you should register with the BIR. Also, you should register with the local government and secure business clearance or business permit. That would allow you to do your business activities within the jurisdiction. Okay? Because tax registration, it means that you are paying your taxes with the national government. On the other hand, you need to secure a clearance so that the city would make sure that what you are doing is lawful and you have an accountability. Now, notice the provinces do not issue business permits. It's actually the cities and municipalities. Also, barangays do not issue business permit. Barangays only issue business clearances, meaning the barangay is allowing you to do business in their jurisdiction, and that barangay business clearance is not a permit to operate business. Rather, it is a reference for the city or municipality to grant you business permit. In barangays, it varies, no? Like in our barangay, if you are a small-time business, no, they would just ask you to pay 100 pesos. But the following year, they collected from me 500 pesos. In one barangay, my client is being collected for 1,000 for business clearance, no? Okay? Sige. So, well, that's their power. Anyway, for real property taxes, notice that the cities can collect real property taxes, but municipalities cannot. So who collects the real property taxes? It's the province, and then the province would give a share of the municipality. Notice that cities have power to collect taxes in almost in all of the things that are listed here. But the municipalities have limited power to collect taxes. Rather, it is in the power of the province. And like in this case, for quarrying, they would just, give a share to the municipality. Okay? And sometimes these are, political issues because, municipalities, it's their, place of, quarrying sand, for example, in Pampanga. But then the provincial government doesn't give their fair share, or they would accuse the province that they are not declaring the real tax collection on quarrying. No? But anyway, we will focus on these two, okay? Yan. Because that is the common transaction from the point of view of the business person. Okay? Now, there's what we call as IRA or Internal Revenue Allotment. Now, businessmen in Baguio pay national taxes in the local BIR. But again, oh no, I'm sorry. They don't pay in the local BIR. Rather, they pay to the bank and it goes straight to the national treasury. However, the national government are required to allot or to share the local government 40% of the internal revenue taxes of businessmen in Baguio. Now, this is the allocation of the 40% share of the local government. 23% goes to the province, 23% goes to cities, and 34% goes to municipalities, and 20% goes to barangays. Okay? Sige. All right. Now, this is the Local Government Code of 1991, the basis of the power of the local governments to tax, otherwise known as Republic Act 7160. Again, as I've mentioned, they are trying to revise this, no, along with the Constitution. Now, these are, RA 7160 is divided into four parts, and we are concerned with Book 2, the local taxation and fiscal matters. But again, I've mentioned that uh, they are now in the works of revising this local government code of 1991, especially with the push of federal form of government. They will give more power and autonomy to local governments, particularly to provinces, just like the federal government of the US. Remember, in the US, each state has their own constitution, and they have their own set of tax laws and own set of criminal and civil laws. Okay, that's why in some states there's death penalty, in some states they do not have death penalty. Okay, because it depends. Because a lot of power has been shifted to the governors of the states. Okay, so that is the same thing with federalism. And the power to tax comes along with it. All right, so these are the major complaints of the current local government code. Well, the LGUs get smaller share. Remember, share of the national government is 60%, and LGUs are only 40%. Okay, so in the second reason, responsibilities are devolved from the national agencies, or it's like taken from the national agencies and transferred to LGUs. Like they are saying, you know what, you are, you know better in your locality, so you improve your locality. But then they would give only small funds, no? That's 40% internal revenue allotment. Okay? And then sometimes the government also requires LGUs to implement basic programs like education or infrastructure or maybe in healthcare, hospitals. And then, of course, there is an accountability on the part of the LGU to implement those. But they are limited because they do not have much funds. Hence, they like to have more funds to do all of these things. Okay? Now, the last slide is the best one. That's the last slide, right? Do you have any questions, class?
Sir,
Yes. Yeah.
you said that in some municipalities, sometimes they get the shares from provinces. Is that the same with barangays that receive shares?
Yes, because first, it would be the provincial government that gets it, okay? And then later on, they would share it to the barangay. So take note that the city and municipality have the power over their barangays. So it's like, the head of the family gets the salary, and then he will try to provide all for his children. Same thing with the city or municipality. So they will allot the received IRA based on their program, and then they will give it to each barangay. But take note that they do not give this in the form of cash. So they give this in the form of budget, and then the barangays would submit their budget, okay, where they plan to spend it, and then they will release the budget based on the planned expenditure. They just don't give it as a money, okay? No, they don't. Do you have further questions, Jury?
Um, yeah, it says tax rates can only be adjusted up to 10% and once every 5 years. Does that mean they increase the 10? What do you mean by up to 10%? You mean like 10% of of the tax? Of,
Yes. For example, uh, we apply for business permit, right?
uh-huh.
Now, we have basic rates for securing business permit. And there are a lot of charges there, like they collect for the sanitation, okay? They collect for the sewer. Maybe your business is tapped with the local sewer. They collect for garbage collection because every time, especially in the business area, they collect the garbage. Now, each of these have rates, fixed rates. Maybe 500 for this one. For each room with the sewer, maybe they charge 200 per month, okay, or per year, etc., etc. Now, these rates can be adjusted only once every 5 years, and the maximum that they can increase is 10%.
So it's basically like an increase up to 10% of the tax paid.
Yes, yes. So for example,
I see.
garbage fee is 500, right? And
Uh-huh.
they like to increase it to 750. Is that allowed? No,
That would be 50%.
exactly. So they are restricted. Of course, that is also a protection for the taxpayer, right? So the local government just cannot increase and increase tax collections or tax rates. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, sir. That is all.
All right. Thank you, Jury. How about the rest of the class? Do you have questions? Okay. Regarding sa stamping of books, December 1 to December 31. That's the month of December. Okay na ba yan? Ay na? Okay. Your name in Ilocano translated to English is where? Yan. Ay na. Ha? Okay. Sige. I'm just kidding, no? Okay na? Any other questions? Yan. Because if you have no more questions, then this would be the end of our class, no? Questions? Sige na. Question ba? Or maybe you would like to share something like an information number. Meron? Okay. Uh, if you have no more questions, then this would be the end of our lecture today. Of course, I cannot talk for like maybe 2 hours, right?